Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Tuesday Thoughts with Mike, your mentor. Hope you guys are off to a good week or a good start to your week. Appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in and to just listen to what I have to say in here. You know, the mission of this page is to help men answer the higher calling that they have on their lives as fathers, as husbands, as friends, and as leaders in the community. And never in a time of history has that calling been so needed and been so great as men, for a multitude of reasons, fail to answer that calling. And the biggest one is just not knowing how, right? Never have been shown what true masculinity looks like, what true manhood looks like, the honor and the responsibility and the stewardship and the servant heart that comes with that responsibility we've been given as men. So it's my goal just to be as authentic as possible, as vulnerable as possible with whoever will listen, to share not only part of my journey or parts of my journey, but how I was able to discover these things for myself. Because as a man, when you don't have someone in your life, another man who, ideally your father, who comes alongside of you and says, son, this is how men are supposed to act. Son, this is how men are supposed to treat women. Son, this is how you carry yourself in public. This is the way that you treat your friends. This is the way you deal with hurts from your past. And I could go on and on. If you don't have somebody doing that and showing you and teaching you the way, you'll find the way eventually, I believe, but you're going to cause a lot of damage along the way if you don't give up to yourself and to others in the process. And when we look at Western society, we're one of the only societies in the world that doesn't have a rite of passage for men. So if you step into a room and you ask 4 different men when they became a man, you'll get 4 different answers. Oh, it was when I slept with a woman for the first time. Oh, it was when I turned 18. Oh, it was when I finally got on my own and I could pay my bills. Or, I don't know. I've heard that one before too. Still wondering, when that happens. Heard that one. We've gotten so far as men away from teaching our sons and teaching the other sons in the community what this looks like, and it's wreaked havoc on our society. The divorce rate, the children growing up in single family homes, fathers out running the streets, chasing women, drinking, using drugs, doing everything they can to avoid that responsibility. Because they got hurts of their own and no one's ever showed them how to deal with those appropriately, how to steward those appropriately, and how to overcome those so that they can fulfill their calling, so that they can show up for their kids, so that they can show up for their wife, so that they can show up for their friends, so that they can take part and be a productive member of their community. And it's sad. And this world's going to hell in a handbasket. And it's not going to change until we as men look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, I can't control what he's doing. I can't control what she's doing. But I can control what I'm doing. And to take ownership of that role. And start to surround yourself with guys who speak life into you. Guys who really care about you. Guys who will tell you the truth, even if it hurts, and challenge you to be a better man, a better husband, a better father, a better person. That growth. Because deep down inside, we both know that's what you want. You're dying for it, but you've never had anybody call you out on it. And for a multitude of reasons, you've run from your greatness. And I understand, I get it, it can be scary. That's part of my story. I did not want to do this. For 3 years, I resisted doing this. What are people going to think? What if I get a big head? Can I really do this? Can I really talk about this stuff? Can I really be this vulnerable? And then I had something happen and it pushed me over the edge. Thanks, Chuma. And now I can't go back. I won't go back. And whoever's willing to listen to me, you're welcome. You're invited to come along, to take a stand. What up, Chuck? And say no more. This is not how men are supposed to treat women. This is not how men are supposed to be in society. This is not how men are supposed to walk out on their families and on their kids. And if you're estranged from your wife, if you're away from your family, please hear my heart. Like, I am not condemning you. Things happen, right? Relationships are tough. Marriage is like the hardest relationship there is. But whatever happens inside that relationship, you still have a responsibility to steward that and honor that appropriately. And I don't know what that looks like for you, but I do know who does, and that's God. And if you'll take the time to get off that cell phone, get off Facebook, get alone, and be real and say, God, like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I need you to show up and show me. He will answer you. So the purpose of Tuesday Thoughts is where I just talk about something that God's put on my heart that pertains to us being better husbands, better fathers, just better men in general. And I want to talk to you for a minute about politics. Now, before you turn me off or go somewhere else, hear me out on this. I love and I hate politics all at the same time. Psychologically, I find it fascinating the way that politicians act, in the way that they... My grandpa always said growing up, excuse my language, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. And I think I have a pretty good BS meter. And I love to see the way politicians work a room and BS this person and, tell yes to this person on this subject, and then the other person who has the exact opposite view, tell them yes, right? And it's a fascinating conversation to have, and I used to have this with my roommates in college. My own theory is think of the most upstanding person in your life. That person could never be president. And here's why. And I'm going to bring this all back around into what it has to do with us as men. So just stay with me here. That person cannot be president because that machine, that political machine, is so corrupt. It is so nasty that everyone who gets in it with right intentions, they get swallowed alive and they get chewed up and they get worn down until they either don't want any part of it, or in order for them to climb that ladder and reach that pinnacle to be president, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, You have to compromise your values and your beliefs and be willing to get down in the mud to make that happen. Now, do the means justify the end? It's hard for me to think so, but I'm not running for president, so why do I say all that? One, because our country is freaking in a mess and it's crazy. And here we got these leaders, right? These people that are supposedly supposed to be our leaders, who won't be honest, who won't be real, who say one thing and do another thing. And they're supposed to be our example. They're supposed to be who we elect. They're supposed to serve us, right? And I get that it's a little more complicated than that. I get that totally. But it's just a corrupt machine. And what that has to do with us as men is it goes back to the principles that I have for my life and my character and what I hold to be true. The same as it does for you. And without those things, no matter what we exchange in return for those, it's not worth it. And you're probably like, okay, maybe you're new to this page and you're like, all right, well, you're sitting here preaching to me and telling me this stuff. Like, what do you know about that? I know a lot about that. Because at one time in my life, I thought I knew what I stood for. I thought I knew the principles that I had, the things that I would not compromise on. And I got myself into a situation before I was married where I got tested in that. And man, did I blow it. This wasn't just a little, okay, you made a mistake, we can overlook that. No, this was destruction of epic proportions. And see, what we fail to realize sometimes is when we are willing to, one, put ourselves in that position, that's the first strike. But then two, even go deeper down that road and then start to compromise, we may not face the consequences that day. But I assure you, we will face the consequences. You will face the consequences. And I walked that road because I compromised before I was married. And then I proceeded to lie to my future wife about it. And I thought that I justified it in my mind and said, there will come a time where this person will know me and who I really am and what I really stand for. And then I'll be able to tell them the truth. Don't ask me what was going through my head, right? Why I thought that was okay. Because it wasn't. And I didn't pay for it right away. I didn't pay for it for 9-10 months. And then lo and behold, my wife's cleaning the house. And she goes in the closet. I mean, how could she have known? And she pulls out my leather jacket that I'd wear at times. And she just sticks her hand in the pocket and pulls this piece of paper out. And on that piece of paper was a note that I had written basically to God about that situation, saying, how could I do that? How could I compromise? Why would I do something like that when you've been so good to me, when you've blessed me with this woman? And it didn't have any details in it. It just served as a reminder to me of what will I stand for myself. What will I allow myself to do and not to do? Because there was times in my life before that where I just make it up on the fly. Okay, find myself in this situation. Does it feel good? Does it do? What's it gonna do? What's it gonna get me? And go from there. And my wife pulled out that piece of paper and she read it. And there's just something about a woman's intuition. And my wife immediately knew. And she called me at work. And she let it rip. And I backpedaled and backpedaled and backpedaled and said I'm on my way home and told my boss I gotta go and left and came home. And walked through the door and fists were flying, boy. Rightfully so. And my wife wanted to know the truth. She wanted to hear me be a man and admit to what I did. And that was my second test in this whole thing. And you would think that I would come clean. I was scared. I was freaking scared. And why I was scared is because I felt like, here we go, I'm going to be just like my dad. Something I promised myself from a young age I would never be like. Now I find myself in this situation where the woman I love is telling me she wants a divorce and doesn't want anything to do with me, and that our marriage is fake and it's built on falsehoods and it could never last. You'd think that'd be enough for me to tell the whole truth. But I didn't. I compromised again to save my own butt. So I told her half the truth. And she left. And I didn't know if she'd come back. And I threw myself at the mercy of God and just cried out for Him to help me. And He spoke to me and He said, go wherever she goes. I said, you gotta be kidding me, God. She ain't even here. And literally 5 seconds later, she pulls back in the driveway after being gone for like 2-3 hours. She comes in and she says, alright, I'm willing to make this work. I don't think it will. I don't know how I'm ever going to trust you again. Don't think I can. But I'm moving back to Chicago. And I said, okay. God told me if this is what I really want, if you're what I really want, then I need to follow you wherever you go. Packed up all my stuff. Only person I told was my boss that I wasn't coming back to work. And we moved to Chicago. And that began... I've been married 12 years. That began like I'd been through a lot up to that point, right? My brother's suicide, my dad not being there, my dad's death, all these things. And those are some of the hardest freaking years of my life. Thanks, Chuck. Some of the hardest years of my life. What do you do when you come home from work and your wife has all her stuff packed in bags in the middle of the living room floor and says, I can't do this anymore. I can't trust you. And I wasn't even doing anything. I'd be at work, right? And I can only imagine how the enemy was attacking her mind with all these thoughts and all these things. Right? I was starting to pay the price for that compromise in my life. And at first, those coming home and walking into that situation was almost a daily occurrence. And then it became a weekly occurrence, and then a monthly occurrence, and then a quarterly occurrence. And then the time would go further in between those types of things as we maneuvered our way through this, and I tried to build back up the trust that I had crushed in an instant because of compromise. Things are going okay, and we move back to Michigan. We move out of the city. And being back here starts to trigger more thoughts and bring up stuff for my wife, seeds that I planted. No one else. I planted them. And my wife, this whole time, she would ask me, I don't know, she asked me dozens and dozens of times if I told her the truth on that day. And I'd look her in the face and I'd tell her, yeah. And in the back of my mind, I'd be like, one day I'll tell you. Don't know when that is, but it ain't now. I was a coward. So we went through some things, and we ended up in some counseling. And the session went really good, and I was like, okay, well, like maybe this is going to be the turning point that we need. And just before the end of the session, the person who was taking us through it said, well, is there anything that either of you need addressed before we can finally put this behind us and move on? I was good on my end. I mean, how could I not be? My wife told me everything before we were married. All her nasty, dirty little secrets. And my wife said, yeah, there's one thing I need to know. And she asked me that question again. And I was scared. But I had a decision to make, right? Like, was I going to compromise again? And I told myself, no, I wasn't. And I told her the answer to that question. And I hit my wife with another uppercut. I think that was about 2.5 years ago. Why do I tell you all this? I mean, I thank God that we're still married today. That my wife never left. that every day she wakes up and I don't know what goes through her mind, but somehow she chooses to try to say, or to say, I'm going to trust you today. And not leave me, not abandon me, not reject me. Right? Because it all goes back to that hole that I had in my heart from my dad, and being rejected and feeling abandoned. This hole that only God could fill. So I say to you tonight in closing, what do you stand for? What are your principles? And not only do you know them, does your family know them? Does your son know them? Does your daughter know them? And even more importantly than that, do they see you walk those out? Yeah, I really didn't expect all that tonight. Guess I'll end it on this. One of the other things my grandpa used to say to me is, he would say, are you a leader or a follower? And I got so sick of hearing that as a teenage boy. Just roll my eyes and I'd, okay, Grandpa, yep, I'm a leader. And he'd sit up in his recliner and stare me right in the eyes and say, okay, show me, don't tell me. And I'd say those same words to you. Show me, don't tell me. So I love you guys. If you got any comments, any questions, you know where to find me. So yeah, hit me up. Otherwise, we'll see you back here tomorrow for the Wednesday Wisdom. Love you. Good night.